Heroic Plus revealed.
Is finally here. Today we're going to talk about the launch experience for World of Warcraft's
Oh, I
second
was
expansion,
there.
as well as recap a bunch of news from recent interviews and some blue posts in the days leading up to launch. But let's begin with the launch. Unsurprisingly, queues were back for many of the larger realms, but they didn't begin to start until later than I anticipated. Every single realm that was locked in advance of release to attempt to begin to alleviate the inevitable queues have remained in that state, and seeing how things have gone so far, are pretty likely to stay that way as well. On my realm,
I feel like Blizzard has totally dropped the ball with these realms. I'm gonna be completely honest. I think they've totally fucking dropped the ball. Like, this is embarrassing how bad this is.
Firewood Village, we went up to some 12 or so layers and have hovered around that or gone a bit low.
Like, I understand how Blizzard, like, I understand how they feel about it, right? Because, like, they're in a position that's, like, kind of an unwinnable position. Because if you add in a lot of the phasing and, like, server merge technology that retail WoW has, that is kind of antithetical to what Classic is supposed to be. So it's like they're basically in a position where, well, we have to do... we have to do this this thing to make the game work, but if we do that, then we get people mad about it. So I think that, yeah, it makes sense why they would be upset. And like, yeah, they put themselves in this unwinnable position now. I really don't think that they did. I actually don't think they put themselves in the unwinnable position at all. I think this is just simply an outcome that would have came out of the game just existing in its natural state.
Since I also experienced a number of crashes on the first few days as well, but that seems to have cleared up though. All in all, I think the launch went rather well. Of course, my realm has nowhere near the population of the likes of Gehennas or Benediction.
Yeah.
They all have to let me know how it went for
That's
you.
so cool,
I picked
man.
Howling Fjord as the...
Like, in my opinion, this is cool. This is why I love being on big servers, is that you have everybody there, shit's popping off, everybody's playing the game, everybody's doing the quests. Like, it's just so cool, man.
Zone to start in, but I didn't really get too much chance to play on launch as I had other things which I had to do at the time. I also tried to head over to the Borean Tundra to see how things were looking there, and for us, the boat just completely broke, like it didn't work whatsoever, and Blizzard shortly after had to add a manual teleport to the Dockmaster NPC.
Smart.
And I heard about this
By the way, very smart decision by Blizzard.
Happening on a bunch of other servers as well. Since then, despite the huge returning player base, there hasn't been too many bad bottlenecks either, thanks to layering. There's not been too many cases where named mobs have loads of people waiting, though some...
There were a handful that were annoying, but you're right, like, Willie is right that there were none that were so bad that they just ruined the experience. Like, it was nothing like Classic WoW.
Quests do contain some very lengthy RP, which can be really annoying. That one quest
fine.
in the cellar of Winterguard in Dragonblight, I'm looking at you here.
That's totally fine. Like, I don't care about this. Whatever.
Does anything as bad as that. I've seen much worse from World of Warcraft launches in the past. We're not going to talk about what happened in Warlords of Draenor here. I'm going to give Blizzard a thumbs up on the re-release of Wrath Classic.
WoD release
Next,
was
getting
awful.
into some of the news. More on the community dubbed Heroic Plus has recently come to light in an interview hosted by Scotty J and Mr. GM with Blizzard dev Chris Zerhut. Heroic Plus was a notion Blizzard revealed some time ago because they wanted to keep dungeons relevant and interesting as the expansion progresses, and you can definitely make an argument they are already relevant because badges alone will assure that, but they eventually become exceedingly face roll, more so than they already are at their launch state.
I think that they should add badges back to retail WoW and, like, let people buy things with badges. I don't see why they don't. I feel like it's an obvious positive. It just makes the game better. It gives people something deterministic that they can buy. I don't get why they don't just, like, I mean, how is it so hard to do that, Blizzard? Like, can't you just, like, fucking add the badges to be the drop and then just put in a vendor? Like, I mean, I can't imagine this taking more than a week to figure out. It's just so nice in Wrath that, like, you can buy pieces of gear if you do dungeons. I think it's great. Like, I don't know why. Like, why do we reinvent the wheel? It's great. Helps longevity. Yeah, exactly.
During the interview, it was mentioned that players will have the ability to increase the difficulty on heroic dungeons. As to exactly how this is done, via a toggle outside,
it's probably going to be a toggle,
between
man.
heroic or normal or something else, an NPC inside the dungeon, or perhaps even extra bosses. That's the bit we don't know quite yet. But
I assume that they're probably just going to scale up the numbers, because they're not going to make this like some super hard Mythic Plus thing, man. Like, what they're really doing is they're doing Heroic Plus, and they're just going to make the dungeons harder. Like, I would assume probably like a 50% buff on like health and 20% buff on damage, something like that. And that's probably what we're going to see with Heroic Plus. It's not going to be some kind of like crazy new thing. Yeah, it's minimal. Well, it's minimal effort, but it's a good idea. I don't think it's a bad thing that it's minimal effort.
But what was mentioned is what the bonus rewards will be for Heroic Plus content. This will come in the form of a loot table shifting about.
Yeah.
Beginning when Ulduar opens in Phase 2, all 25-man raid loot from Tier 7 will be moved to the 10-man raid version instead, and the 10-man raid loot will be moved to the new Heroic Plus dungeons. So just to reiterate, 25-man raid items go to 10-man, 10-man raid items go to Heroic Plus. It's as if all the loot is getting moved down one notch.
Yeah, it makes it easier to get in there and do it. I don't know exactly how this is supposed to work. I guess so you can do 10 and 25 and get twice as many chances for loot a week. But I do feel like if you're gonna buff it and make 10-man give 25-man loot, you should make 25-man drop more pieces of loot.
So yes, raid quality loot will come from these new dungeons. Old raid quality loot, at least, once Ulduar is out, the best gear in the game will still come from that source.
And I do think, by the way, this is a good decision Blizzard is making. It's smart for them to do this.
Thoughts from me are, well, it does seem interesting and I think I like it, but I want to hear more about what kind of difficulty this Heroic Plus will take, though.
That's
I don't expect it to be very hard, by the way, because this to me seems like catch-up content, pure and simple.
Exactly, it's catch-up content. Like, it's not supposed to be the MDI for Wrath of the Lich King. They can't make it the MDI for Wrath of the Lich King because so many of the bosses and the mechanics and the raids, in these dungeons, are so face roll fucking easy that they're just going to completely be run over no matter what. Like, if you make it's basically like, it's like Tower of Fantasy, for example. Like, a lot of the mobs and the bosses in Tower of Fantasy are super fucking easy. So, like, it's not about being able to, like, do the mechanics. It's just being able to spend enough money to do the damage. Which is, like, that's okay, sure. But I feel like the bosses and the even the trash mobs need to have something a little bit more unique rather than just like a melee attack in order for it to be like a competitive event.
Not an alternative to endgame like Mythic Plus is in retail. If it was an alternative endgame, surely the rewards would reflect that, and they don't.
It was too close,
also, Heroic Dungeons are on a daily lockout, so you're going to be absolutely power gearing your ults, assuming Heroic Plus is daily,
you're gonna get super fast gear.
How will raid items be distributed into Heroics? There's no official dungeon journal, so is it just the case that players go in there, figure it out, and then we update Atlas loot? On top of that,
probably
good epics are already put in dungeons, just not quite this early. Trial of the Champion 5-man normal is 200 item level, that's like Nax 10, and Heroic is 219, which is Ulduar 10. The ICC Heroics drop 232 item level gear 2, which is equivalent to Ulduar 25 or Trial 10-man.
Well, it's not equivalent to Ulduar 25-man. The gear from Ulduar 25-man is actually 226. The weapons are 232.
Also, what happens to Heroic Plus once we are, say, in the Trial of the Crusader patch? Will they start dropping Ulduar gear? And
I think so.
Buffed? But then how about the Tier 7 10-man loot? Is that moved back into raids at that point in time? How will this affect GDKP's farming old content for gold? Will people offer World Tour for epics and pre-agreed prices if X item drops? Definitely a few questions to be asked here. On the surface, though, it sure looks interesting.
I think it's just an overall good thing that keeps the other dungeons relevant for longer periods of time. It's not that big of a deal. I do also hope that they will have, like, maybe this might be a bad idea, but I think this would be cool. if like by the time that TOC comes out, or like, I don't know, like ICC comes out, it would be cool for them to have a Heroic Plus option of maybe some of the raids too. Like, I don't know if really that would work or if that would be a good idea at all. It's just something that comes to mind because like if you're doing it for dungeons, can you do it with raids? I don't know if that would work or not.
Also, WoW, are dungeons ever going to be popular? This is going to make the dungeon group finder tool look really great stats-wise, by the way, for Blizzard. If you were
I also want to say, like, the group finder tool for dungeons in Classic, I feel like it's been fine. Like, I'm not on a massive server, I'm on Sky Fury, but I feel like the group finder has been okay with me.
They would add the LFD later on, which I suspected they just might have. Now that they've announced this, I'm really not too sure anymore. And that's even without going into the question of, would Heroic Plus be joinable via a random queue, which I don't think it would. You can't even join the
I think that if you make Heroic Plus joinable via random queue, all you're doing is setting yourself up to create bad social experiences. Random queue content should be easy. If there's any random queue content that's challenging, people will blame the game and get mad. Don't make any random queue content difficult at all.
0 on retail via the automated system to this day. Moving on, the Northrend Adventuring Supply bonus boxes from quests and completing normal dungeons as a tank or healer have been nerfed. These have been handed out at a much greater rate than what I expected just through simple questing.
You get so many of these, and also I think that these boxes are great for the game. They're amazing because it makes it to where like farming consumables is not, in my opinion, a fun activity in WoW. This is not an enjoyable activity. This is basically you are doing something in order to do what you want. But I do think that it was bad designed the way that the boxes only gave items that devalued alchemy. I think that the boxes should equally devalue all professions rather than exclusively devaluing one profession and effectively running prices for all of the materials that you get from that profession completely into the ground. So I think that it was a good change that they made.
Clip of me here opening a bunch of them pre-nerf. Here's what Blizzard say about the new version. We're making changes to reduce the quantity and increase the diversity of items rewarded by these
it's a good
banks.
thing.
There is still a chance to drop consumables, but also a chance to drop ore, leather, cloth, herbs, or gems. I was going to comment about these banks before the nerf because they definitely felt like they were pricing many consumables from alchemists out of the game.
Yeah, they were just, it was no longer... Like for a gathering profession, like if you're gathering herbs, the value that you're getting for gathering herbs, if these boxes are in the game, goes down by at least 50%. You see how that's obviously a bad thing.
Top of that, the versions of the bags that came from Heroics were actually dropping flasks as well, which really stepped over the line of something which should just be handed out at random from a rewards bag to anyone. You can still get some okay-ish items from them, and don't forget they have a very low chance to give mounts obtainable in old dungeon content, such as the Swift White Hawk Strider, the Raven Lord, and Rivendare's Death Charger. Saying all of this, most of the alchemy consumables that you got were things you would use to level your skill, rather than items which would be super in demand at endgame. And if you are holding on a ton of these bags to do a grand opening when you hit level 80, well, unless they've changed the ID on the bags, then that is unfortunate for you, I'm afraid. Next up, we already know that content in
I assume that the bags probably already have the items determined inside of them the moment that you get them, and the opening of the box is effectively unwrapping a present and not pulling the lever on a slot machine. I don't know that though. I have no idea. But anyway, so like I saw the Hawkstrider. No, they got nerfed. They changed it. So what you're saying is they retroactively changed boxes that you obtained before the change into after the change, even if you had the exact same box from before the change, now it opens into something different? Yes, it did. Okay, yeah. I mean, either way, what I'm saying is that I wasn't sure about that. What I'm saying with this is like, I do think that it's a good idea for them to space out the rewards and space out the items, because if you only give things that devalue herbalism, number one, you're adding way more things into the economy that devalue it. And so not only is it being devalued, but it's being devalued at a rate that's much higher than everything else. I think that the boxes are good, but they should just devalue all gathering professions equally.
has been buffed in health and damage by some 30%. But just the other day, we've also had confirmation that Sartharion, specifically variants of the encounter involving the 3 drakes, have also been buffed quite a bit.
This is a good idea. Blizzard is making the right decision with this. If they did not buff Sartharion, nobody would ever do the fight the right way, and they would just wait until they had enough Nax 25-man gear, and they would just burn down the boss every single time, and nobody would ever do the fight. There would never be a time where like, oh, well, let's try out the fight, let's see what Sartharion is like, and it's like, you actually do the mechanics. Because the speed kill strategy was so much better that it just eclipsed everything else. I think that you should be able to do the speed kill strategy, but you shouldn't be able to do it as easily as you can now.
Post says Will of Sartharion now increases his health by 25% with 1 Drake alive, 45% with 2, and 65% with 3. Previously it was just 25. The reasons
SAR 3 should be quite manageable, but unintended strategy of someone burning down the boss should be much less viable. Please note that the endgame tooltip is currently incorrect. Okay, so basically he has he gains, 40% more health. Yeah, I mean, you could probably do that with Ulduar gear. Like, maybe best in slot Nax gear, you could probably still burn him down. I don't know, though. It depends on, like, how you want to kite the drakes. Yeah, it will take longer. Yeah, but the thing is, like, it takes longer. So the reason why it's bad is so, like, the second drake that comes down puts a shield on Sartharion to where he can't take damage. So you have to kite that drake away, and on top of that, at 25% or 20% health, I forgot which one, Sartharion enrages the drakes and makes them do 500% damage. So you have to kite the drakes away from Sartharion because the immunity bubble it puts on Sartharion is an aura, so it's only got like a 30 or a 40 yard range. So you separate them, and then you have to burn down Sartharion. The pussy strat? Yeah, that's what we used to do all the time. Plenty of time before the second drake, though. Yes, but if you got the second drake, the strategy used to be that you would get a feral druid, usually, to build aggro on them, like approaching 40% or 30%, and then run the fuck to the beginning of the instance. That's what we used to do.
For this are pretty simple. Even during the beta, when players had some decent blue gear but not pre-best,
they could burn it.
Near it in many cases, it was already very possible to follow.
Keep in mind that that's only a partial truth, because the other reason why they were able to burn Sartharion 3 drakes in the beta is because of the way that DKs were bugged on the beta that artificially increased their damage. So on live servers, that's not going to be as possible even with the same gear.
Nuke the boss and ignore the drakes and end the encounter without really having to deal with any of the extra mechanics that the drakes are supposed to add. Blizzard wants Sartharion to have such a massive health pool that this isn't a realistic possibility. That being said, classic players are very good at optimizing the game, and nuking the boss is the most optimal way to collect loot from the encounter, so I've no doubt that some nuke strategy will make a reappearance fairly early on into the expansion. You've probably already noticed this on your UI. It's been there for a while, but a quick mention to the fact that you can queue for Battlegrounds anywhere in the world from the PvP tab on your UI. Nice bit of quality of life. Glad they got that one in for launch. But speaking about queuing remotely for content, let's touch on the LFG tool so far. Obviously, it's still early days of everyone having seen this tool and now having had a go with it, and everyone's leveling at the moment too, so it's going to be extremely active.
Yeah,
and
it's very active.
I've seen the posts of people wanting tier 6 geared or brutal gladiators for Utgard Keep or Nexus, probably because they're chain farming the instance, not doing a quest run. This was always going to happen.
Yeah, I again, people that complain that other groups have like high expectations and stuff like that, that's so fucking annoying to me. It's like there are a lot of groups that do not have that. It's not real. It's just some bullshit that people invented to rationalize why they don't get invited. It's so dumb.
I haven't seen so far is people saying I can't find a group for the content at all.
That's
and I've
true.
made the point to use it a few times myself, and there is definitely a huge mix of players in there at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Returning people, boosted characters, to people in tier 5 or tier 6 TBC gear. You know, if we had the actual correct to Wrath of the Lich King looking for dungeon, a group of 3 people would be able to vote kick you if they didn't like your gear at any point throughout the dungeon. This wasn't changed until a hotfix in 20...
Well, it was actually 4 people if they were all from the same group or the same guild. So if a group of 4 queued up, or sorry, if a group of 3 queued up, they couldn't kick one person unless they had the 4th person agree to it.
11, which is during Cataclysm. I'm not saying the current one is perfect. I've criticized it in the past, and I still think it could be improved, as I've talked about earlier. And people can and will definitely be toxic with it. They're always going to be. It's random people on the internet. But the LFD definitely had its own set of issues that were addressed later on. I think when there's thousands of people leveling per server, it's really easy to say, look how successful and good this system is. What will happen in a few weeks' time will really stand to test how the community interacts with it. We're gonna enter this pre-bis gearing phase where people reserve items and don't invite certain armor types, and we're also going to have the badge farming phase where people will heavily lean into inviting people who are extremely over-geared because they want to absolutely power through the content and just do a world tour of heroics. I think in any event, people are gonna want to do stuff fast because gamers are much more goal-oriented these days, and
gamers are way more goal-oriented. I think that's obvious, and also it's people want to play with like-minded people. There are going to be people that like poop socking it, and they like using a flask for heroics and speeding through all of them and clearing all the heroics in 2 hours. And I don't think that it's fair to say that those people are playing it wrong, in the same way that I don't think it's fair for those people to say that the people that want to just, you know, get together on a Friday night and spend 3 hours in Gundrak are playing it wrong either. I think it's a matter of playing with other people that have the same outlook that you do, and then finding like-minded people. It's that simple. It's not some weird fucking social problem that needs to be solved.
As per usual, whenever this conversation starts to happen again and again, which it always does, don't play World of Warcraft exclusively in the pug scene unless your schedule really only allows you to do that. Try and find the guild, even if it's just a leveling guild or a temporary guild. I've played exclusively in the pug scene in the past. Sometimes you'll get a great group of people, and sometimes you'll just find the worst people on the internet. That's kind of the mix and match you get with an MMO. And with so many people having similar goals of gearing and leveling at the moment, it shouldn't be too difficult to find a guild. That is the wrap up so far. Back to leveling for me. I hope the launch on your server went well. Let me know your thoughts on the topics that we've discussed today, and as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
I think this was a great video. He talked about a lot of stuff that I've obviously brought up. I think that, I mean, obviously, it's, again, Blizzard has been making really good decisions with Classic WoW for Wrath. I think that all of the decisions they've been making have been very, very good. They're not paying me to say this. I'm not sponsored or anything. I actually think that they're making good decisions with the game. Watch the Nightsaber update video? Yeah, I'll look at the Dragonflight trailer, and then I might look at that, okay? And then I guess we'll watch the Overwatch one kind of soon, too. We've got 10,000 players ahead of me now. Okay, that's great. So we're going to have plenty of time. Did you watch Force Gaming's video on WoW potentially coming to console? No, I didn't see that. I might watch that at some point. We'll see what's going to happen. But yeah, Willie makes a lot of Classic WoW videos. He actually made videos for Blizzard for Classic WoW. This guy's very good, so make sure to give him a follow, give it a like, etc. I like these videos a lot. And it's one of the, yeah, they have very few good decisions. Yes, but they do have them. And make sure to, you know, I think it's important to keep in mind whenever things actually whenever they do the right thing as much as whenever they do the wrong thing.